Hello everybody, how's it going? So welcome to another One Piece review. This time we're covering episode 1093. After 2 weeks of waiting, we finally get the continuation of the Egghead Island arc, or in this case, the events that took place off Egghead Island. So last week, obviously we had a recap episode about Law. So it's been 2 weeks, and admittedly, episode 1092 turned out to be a complete banger, which nobody expected because of how well done the voice acting was when it comes to like Bonnie. That whole episode was amazing from start to finish. This episode was S tier, easy. Not just because of the animation, the art and the animation, how well it was handled, but just the episode alone, the vibe, everything that flowed into this episode. They took elements of chapter 1063 and chapter 1064 and they combined it into one episode rather than giving us the cliche two-part episode. They're like, hell no, we're giving you it straight up. Teach versus Law in this one episode. It was worth waiting for. They knocked it out of the park in my opinion. There were certain things, obviously, the second half of the episode was a lot better, but when you consider like they didn't waste any time with this episode, they got straight to the point and they blended it all into one episode involving Law and Teach, and it worked. It worked masterfully. No doubts going into this episode. This was going to be a banger, and indeed it was. To Toei's advantage here is, because considering there's no chapter this week, the anime and those in charge of this episode took center stage with Egghead Island. Like the content of Egghead Island is pretty unique anyway, but they went above and beyond to make this episode and this fight feel like a whole bigger deal than it actually was. They did the same thing with the previous episode with Bonnie revealing that Kuma was a father after seeing the pacifista, and as far as setting the tone for the rest of the year, they did a masterful job because like this was a statement episode. Those in charge who made the decision to change the art style, they made a statement with this episode. So Law versus Teach, place your bet. So we had 2 weeks to wait for this, and admittedly, like I said, they combined elements of chapter 1063 into chapter 1064. Vincent Chanzard, the French animator who's a veteran apparently, and who's worked on One Piece recently, his most infamous work was episode 1062 with the climax to the King, the sensational climax to King versus Zoro, and how masterful the art and animation was in that episode, and you see elements of that integrated into this episode. Clearly, Katsumi Ujizuka, who also worked on that episode, I do believe, who also worked on episode 1062. I believe Natasha Ishida worked on this episode too. As clear as day evidenced by towards the end of this episode, you can clearly see that, so I'll get to that. Not only was this like an action-oriented episode, but everything else that flowed around the action itself was handled great. Like there were certain scenes like I wanted to see more of this. Like the whole thing about the Blackbeard pirates invading Coco Island. I admittedly wanted more content from that after the way they handled that scene, but I'll get to that. So this episode, like I said, they got straight to the point. We go into the beginning of the episode, and immediately the Blackbeard pirates open fire on the Heart pirates in the Polar Tang. They submerge into water to try and get away. And if you pay close attention, it's not cannon fire. It's the exploded apples that Doc Q was apparently using, which we kind of see later on, which is described as exploded apples. They're used to try and blast the Polar Tang. And we see Teach charging up his Gura Gura no Mi abilities. And there's a lot of question marks when it comes to like Blackbeard in this chapter, and I don't know why it's questionable at this point, but I'll get to that as well by the end. So, and uses it to force a whirlpool hole in the ocean, which at this point the Polar Tang is like it's already taking damage, so that's something to keep in mind as well. So they're taking damage, and the fact that the crew was like freaking out, but you couldn't see Law. Automatically, I knew what was up. It's like, okay, yeah, it's the scene where we get Law having his gender swapped thanks to Doc Q's disease abilities from his devil fruit abilities. We also get to see at least 5 of the heart pirates to get affected by this. Beppo was the most hilarious one in my opinion, but we see Law. I guess the people is going to be fantasizing about this. Like, here's your moment with Law changing genders, at least for the time being, thanks to Doc Q's abilities. Like I said, and the other members, 5 of the members of the Heart Pirates get infected by this. Beppo was the most hilarious one, considering I don't know where he got that wig from, but it resembled Carrot. So that was kind of hilarious to me. Law says, fuck that shit. He puts a dead to that immediately, and he reverses the effects of Doc Q's disease. And he said, before he does that, he actually says, battling the Yonko, I've actually found a way to break through. I'm assuming it's like changing properties of his genetic makeup, because that's the only thing I can take from this. Either way, he does it, and he switches himself and most of the crew members back to normal. So that was kind of cool in that aspect. Like, let's not draw this shit out. Let's put a dead to this, and let's get into the action. So I like how they did that. They continue trying to get away. Law says, let's get to higher ground. Let's get to land itself. So they do that immediately. Like I said, they got straight to the point with this episode. So they got to the land, and immediately we have, Van Ogre and Jesus Burgess on the ship. Van Ogre's like, let's go after them. He uses his ability to warp to where Law and the Heart Pirates are submerged on land. And then this is where they get to demonstrate their abilities. Now, I don't know why they felt the need to like reintroduce these characters as if we didn't know that episode 1092 didn't happen. Like, we literally got that in the ending of that episode. So outside, that's the only thing I will say. I don't know why that was put in there. If people actually forgot. If people forgot, then they got reminded real quick, because Jesus Burgess uses his strong ability from the strong fruit to lift up a mountain, which, yes, is impressive. Law, like a badass, uses amputate to like slice the mountain into sandwich cuts, literally. So I don't know why Law was taken back by the fact Jesus Burgess is able to pick up a mountain. He and Doflamingo took care of a meteor that Fujitora hurled at them back at Dressrosa, and they demolished that meteor. So, and before then, Doc Q is like, oh, you found a way to reverse my disease, cure my disease. And I was kind of curious how Law got affected in the first place, infected. But I feel like they're going to save that for when Doc Q goes up against a member of the Red Hair Pirates, or if he goes up against Chopper, because I think it's pretty obvious. He's like known for causing diseases, and Chopper's known for curing them. That's like a perfect matchup for Chopper to like go up against when he goes up against the Blackbeard Pirates. So Teach appears on Stronger alongside Doc Q, and the funny thing is Teach has weighed it down, but he appears and is like, oh, and Law's like, what the hell are you doing here? And then Teach gives us the most obvious response. It's like, oh, I knew you, Straw Hat or Kid, one of you would pass by here. You have one since you left Wano, since Kaido had one. You must have one, right? The raw poneglyph. So that's what he's after. That's why he was waiting for either Luffy, which would have been ridiculous anyway, which we were never going to get that matchup. Kid has got that. It kind of reveals that Kid's gone in another direction, and then Law teaches after the poneglyphs. Now, the thing to note here is like Law's response. He smiles and he's like, "All right, winner take all, bring it." And at first glance, those who don't really follow the manga or don't really know the context, why would Law agree to that? Why not try and get away from Teach? Well, the thing to note is the episode goes long. It makes it crystal clear why Law is gung-ho about this and why it's called winner take all, literally. We go to the first portion of the episode, and the thing is, it's not even the first half. It's like this happens in the first 8 minutes. So, like I said, we've got straight to the point. The second part of the episode, if you want, which is Law versus Teach, that's when the animation really kicks in. We see Teach looking Kaido menacing with the eye glowing. I love that shot. Law orders Hakugan to take care of the Polar Tang. He orders Sachi and Penguin to like go into water so they can launch a counterattack, which does come into effect later on in this fight or in this episode. One of the awesome shots of the episode is like Law walking like a boss as he's charging up his awakening, his like room, as he's about to take out Stronger, or at least take down Stronger with his room attack. Obviously you got the impact frames. The first is the Heart Pirates Jolly Roger, which was pretty cool. As Law's about to unleash the attack to amputate, you see Law's tattoo. I thought that was a really cool touch. He uses that to take out Stronger, or he slices Stronger in half, and I love this. I don't know why, but the slow-mo shot of Stronger being sliced in half. Also, that's Teach's foothold, as long as Doc Q's foothold. So sucks to be them. So Stronger sliced in half. It's not too much of a problem considering Law's using amputate. We've seen this with Kinemon. He was sliced in half and he wasn't dead. So yeah, he got Stronger gets sliced in half. Apparently, Teach didn't know that Law had awakening, and this is something to keep in mind here, because Teach points out, is it an awakening technique? So then Teach recovers, and I have to give Teach props here, because they handled him like a boss in this episode. So he quickly recovers, despite losing his foothold. He uses Tremor Crush, and he uses a punch, and a lot of people seem to think he's using Conqueror's Haki or Advanced Conqueror's Haki on this attack to like cause the sparks, but either way he uses it to blow shit away. And the impact frame that you see where we see Teach about to unleash the attack, I love that shot. So unfortunately Law's getting pinned down with Teach's Gura no Meat abilities, and as cool as it was to see like Law and Teach animated, like I do have to give them props. Like they gave some of the Heart Pirates some spotlight. Specifically, Gene Bart, Sachi and Penguin. Beppo not so much, although he's going to get his moment to shine. So we see Sachi turn into Squirtle and uses water gun multiple times. He uses multiple water gun to take out the apples thrown towards them by Doc Q, and they're exploding. So he's able to take out the apples before they make contact with the ground before they explode. So that's actually pretty cool on Sachi's behalf. Underwater, and they go to the polar tank to try and take out Blackbeard's ship, which to me is kind of a key detail here considering the aftermath of this fight and what I know. And so whether or not that actually happens, whether or not Blackbeard's ship actually gets taken out, I don't know. It's going to be very key if that is. There's a question I had about that when it comes to like when we got this in the manga. So then Law's about to use his awakening, but before then, Van Ogre is about to like take a shot at Law. Beppo gives the command to like protect Censure no matter what. So Gene Bart doing his thing, tanking the shot from Van Ogre and drops. So he tanked the attack. Law uses Kroom, coats his sword in anesthesia, and then uses it to stab Teach. Stabs Teach, and he pierces Teach for the gut, much like Big Mom style. And just like Big Mom, got super cocky because he doesn't feel anything at this point. Well, that's about to change because Law uses Strong Willy to like, I love this shot where you see it channeled straight through the blade. It reached Teach and he's affected from, he's attacked from within. You see the blood spurting out of Teach. Like, that's a major blow. Like, after this, Van Ogre's like, oh, Commodore, you shouldn't have like charged in without a plan. He warps. He goes to Teach and is like, should we back out, go to the ship? Teach is like, no, let's push on. Van Ogre like warps Teach away, and then Teach uses this opportunity to recover and then land directly where Law's at. So now we get a face-to-face confrontation between Law and Teach. The way they paced this episode was tremendous. You got the stare down, Teach versus Law. While this is going on, you see the cannon fire of Blackbeard's ship being attacked from the polar tank. And as it's getting attacked, we go inside the ship to where we find out the pudding has been captured. So that's kind of like one of the big reveals of the episode. The flashback of why it happened. Now, the interesting thing to note here is like we saw pudding captured in the cover story of chapter 1064. They also had somebody else attached to that cover story, but they actually told it in this episode sequences. So we go from Pudding, who's been captured. Then she says, if Big Mom were alive, you would not be saying these things right now. So it cuts to the flashback to where we see Van Ogre and somebody else storm Choco Town or Coco Island on a whole cake island. Mom was away on Wano. It had to have done because there's no way Teach would actually send 2 members of the Blackbeard Pirates to take on Big Mom and her crew while she's on her own turf. Like, no chance. We see that, and I have to give props to Cracker for standing his ground, but it doesn't really work out. You see the Biscuit soldiers being summoned by Cracker to try and put up somewhat of a defense, and the fact that Van Ogre immediately took him out like no problem. He warped, then he sniped each of them, and then Aokiji, it's revealed that Aokiji, who's aligned with the Blackbeard Pirates, he walks by Cracker, and just like that, a 3rd level Yonko commander is frozen solid. Like, no problem. So he's taken care of, he's frozen solid. I don't know why, but this kind of made this scene a whole lot of emotional, considering what we know about the connection of Brule and Katakuri. But when Brule appeared and saw Cracker in the state, she started tearing up. So that added a lot of emotional impact that I did not expect. And that's another thing too. Is I did not see Katakuri anywhere in the victim list caused by Aokiji and Van Ogre. We saw a lot of people. It looked like residents of Choco Town have been frozen solid by Ice Age, by Kuzan. There we see Pudding getting captured, so that's where it leads to now. And it's obvious we know why. I said this multiple times. I don't know how many times. Not only in the manga, when covering this in the manga, but also in the anime. After Whole Cake Island, we were going to see Pudding again because she's a member of the Three-Eyed Tribe that's not fully awakened. That was also stated back in Wano when Kaido and Big Mom are having a conversation. And Kaido's like, don't you have a member of the Three-Eyed Tribe? And Big Mom's like, no, I can't be bothered to wait. I want Nico Robin to help you read the Royal Poneglyph. You remember that? Because that was stated. So that's exactly why Teachers captured Pudding, which is something to keep in mind here, but this is good for 2 reasons. Number 1, Pudding will have a role in the story, and number 2, this gives Pudding and Sanji a chance to reunite, which I said the moment Pudding ran away from Sanji in that emotional episode, they were going to be again. The anime made that even more clear. So here you go, and the question I have is that they kind of made it vague who it was that was beside Van Ogre, even though those who pick up any detail that's left in the One Piece chapters or in the One Piece episodes, you got people covering it top, left, right, and center to figure out that bring up discussions. For some that cover this religiously, Aokiji being affiliated with the Blackbeard Pirates is not a shock. It's not new. It's not new information. It's something we knew ever since the aftermath of Dressrosa. Remember the conversation Alcaino had with the Gurusei, where Alcaino got pissed because the Gurusei were covered up for Doflamingo and his antics, and it made the admirals look really bad. It made the Marines look really bad, and the Gurusei shut the hell up. We don't care. It's because of you that Aokiji walked out and joined up with Blackbeard. But the interesting thing is Kuzan was a part of that cover story in chapter 1064, but they decided to make it a whole lot better with this episode. And I did not. So I got to give him credit for that. Like I said, the way they blended this episode together was great. On top of the clash we got with Teach and Law, with the art and animation, with how they paced this episode was tremendous. Pudding being captured by the Blackbeard Pirates is going to give Sanji an emotional reason to go after. I don't know who's going to fight. Maybe at this point it could be Aokiji. That'd be epic. But I'm actually come to think about it, elementally wise, that would make perfect sense. Sanji bringing the heat versus with the Aokiji with the ice. That'd be epic. But yeah, that's just some things that go from my head right now. Pudding is going to be an emotional driving force for Sanji when we get to that fight. Regardless of whoever he fights, Pudding is going to be a driving force. It's obvious why Pudding is there. So yeah, so everything's set in stone for as we go along in the final saga. We cut from the flashback in Whole Cake Island to like present time, with Law using tacks on the rubble to like aim to fire to what, and fires it at Teach. Teach blocks it, and if you notice, now this is the instance where you really have to pay close attention. Like the people that say that Teach used Advanced Conqueror's Hockey in this episode, I will not doubt, because the moment you see the rubble not make contact with Teach's elbow and he just demolishes away anyhow, that's either an effect of his Gura Gura no Mi abilities, which he spams throughout this entire episode, or, and we know that if you use Advanced Conqueror's Hockey, you do not have to make contact. So that's something to keep in mind here. So it's one of the two. I know it's confusing, but to me, it does like the art elements to say that Teach has Advanced Conqueror's Hockey. Another thing to keep in mind here is, like in episode 1087, we saw Teach clash with Seraphim Hawk, or Mihawk Seraphim, and we see him use Armament Hockey not once but twice for the first time in that episode to block the attack from Seraphim Hawk. But that was also shown in the manga, but I feel like they showed that for a reason. The shot where Law is coming in, and by the way, the Naruto Shida animation kicks in where Law comes in with the Kroom and comes into attack Law. So that was an epic shot. But if you see Teach charging up his his Tremor Crush punch, you see the red spark. So I don't know. Speaking of the final clash, literally, we see Law and Teach clash, and I love this. To me, I love the way this episode ended, where you see Law looking it looked even until I love how the background changes from black to white as Teach is about to use his other arm, because he's blocking Law's sword with one arm. He's about to use his other to use Black Vortex, and I think Law knows what's coming up here, and it doesn't look good. So, but I love how this was shot. Like you see, like I said, the background's changed into black and white. You see Teach looking menacing. You see the Black Vortex forming around Teach and then engulfing Law as it goes to black as the episode comes to an end. So I love that sequence so much. That transition was great, and it really put the dread on the climax of this battle. Like I said, everything about the Law and Teach fight, unless they show us a bit extra, is like pretty much wrapped up at this point. The only thing that they're missing right now is literally the deciding outcome, which, even covering it in the manga, I'm still kind of dumbfounded why Oda decided to take as long as he did to give us what we could have predicted. Like, we knew who was winning, and we knew who wasn't dying. Like I said before, it was a statement episode. Like, with this new art style, like, they put the doubters to rest, in my opinion. They got straight to the point. They blended all the content of Teach versus Law, unless they add something to it later down the road, which I don't think is necessary. But either way, they put the focus on this fight, and they also put focus on the return of Aokiji, and they made that shot of Aokiji as he's using Ice Age to freeze Cracker was another epic shot of the episode that a lot of people are going back to. There's so much to dissect from this episode. Like I said, the way it was blended all together was a masterpiece. Like, straight up, obviously they knocked it out of the park with this episode. Next week, we're going back to the events of Egg Island, which is why I appreciate the pace of this episode more, so they didn't drag this out 2 episodes, so it wasn't necessary. So I'm glad they did that. Looks like we're going to see the other members of the Straw Hats in their Egghead gear next week, so that's going to be fun. Let me know what you guys think down below. I thought it was tremendous the way it was handled from start to finish. That's going to do it for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like the review if you did it, thumbs up. I appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys' support. Subscribe channel for more One Piece. Catch you guys later. Thanks, guys. Bye.